Hi, and welcome to Tremco Live, where we're socially distant but technically connected. Pretty excited to be back here in the office. I've spent the last couple of weeks not in this actual space because we've been doing some renovations. Happy to engage with you as we have been every Friday. This is our opportunity to engage with all of you, so continue to give us your feedback. And if you'd like to be a part of the show, I'd love for you to join me. I am Marcy Tyler, the Director of Building Science for Tremco Commercial Sealants and Waterproofing. We really do love to hear your stories of how you're winding down watching this program with us. So please, like I mentioned, continue to let us know that. We are really looking out for case studies, for design challenges that you faced and you provided a solution for, or even better, if there's a design challenge you have and you want us to get together and talk about that, we'd love to have that. This entire month, we've been focused on industry associations. The first week, we had Scott Robinson from the EIFS industry member association. Following week after that, we had Craig Wetmore, and he represented the Air Bear Association of America. After that, last week, we had Kelly McBride, and we apologize, as we know we had some technical difficulties with that one. So hopefully you caught it, the recording that we were able to send out. And as always, we have these all on YouTube for everyone to watch whenever it's convenient for them. So we have had many broadcasts so far. I think this might be number 18. And then this week, we haven't yet one more guest to round out that month of industry associations. So we're pretty excited about that. As always, I'm very proud to sit here today and represent so many different brands and people throughout that Tremco Construction Products Group. As you can see here, lots of different brands, products, services, and people. That ability to connect with you all is challenging these days, but once again, we're doing the best we can from a virtual interaction. If you check in with us weekly, we've done a broadcast in the past where we talk about building enclosures, and we've got a lot of information and we do a lot of industry education about, why are buildings still leaking? We've done a lot in terms of education. We've got all these industry associations still getting together. So we know that it's still important for us to continue to do just that. So we want you all to engage as much as possible with the industry associations that we've already talked about, with the one that we're talking about today. And there's so many other in the industry as well. It can help us so that we really can focus on that quality control, spec enforcement, the integrity of our building envelopes, and making sure that when we're talking about by others, we know how those by others are connecting. Some of the information we provided you in the past talks about all those products that come together on a building enclosure, right? And this is just a small representation of that. Thanks to Brian Stroik, my colleague, this is one of the presentations he likes to give. And it's like, how many products are we looking at, right? So we've got 5 different types of backup walls, and that's just 5 listed there. That's insulated concrete forms, you've got poured in place concrete, you got CMU block, OSB exterior sheathing, you could add plywood to that. You've got a lot of different backup walls. You've got a lot of different types of air barriers, different types of insulations, and different types of claddings. Not only do we have all these different types of products, when they come together, they have to perform, right? They have to perform in such a way that they can stop air, the uncontrolled flow of air. They have to be waterproofing. They have to adhere. They have to be compatible. And the story just continues to go on and on and on. It really lends us to being collaborative and cooperative as much as possible and communicate on these job sites. Any way that we can do that is important. In this case, it's about 116 wall configurations, but if you add in the technologies and the manufacturers, and every single time we transition on a job site, every time we go from one plane to another, every time we penetrate that surface with different types of, windows or doors or pipes, conduits, we're going to have different ways that we need to connect. And if we think about it, every single job site, there's a potential for callbacks or rework. And I'm sure no one watching today would want to focus on that rework, but we need to think about that, and we need to think about that ahead of time. We continue to talk about collaboration and education, and I think the best way to do that is by being participants in industry associations. Very excited to have our guests today and our organization that we're going to be talking about today, which is the International Institute of Building Enclosure Consultants. And I want to welcome Brian Pallasch to Tremco Live. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, great to be here.
I rambled a little bit there to get this lead in here to this great organization that you represent each and every day. We've had a bit of a name change here, haven't we? And we have some great history. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Well, I guess the fun part about this is it's not a name change for me. I've been with IIBEC now for about 15 months, and so I was at the very beginning of when we changed our name. So about April of 2019, we became the International Institute of Building Enclosure Consultants. Prior to that, we had been RCI, and then a little bit prior to that, we'd been the Roof Consultants Institute. So really, what transpired with IIBEC is that we realized that our members were actually more engaged in the entire building enclosure, and that our name really should reflect what our members were doing as consultants in the industry. So it made complete sense for us to make this change. We've done a lot of new things at IIBEC as a result in the last 15 months. One of them is to change our name, but also to spend a little bit more emphasis on the other areas of the building enclosure, not just the roof.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, you guys obviously have been working very much so in the waterproofing and exterior wall area in terms of specification and design for years. I know I attended some programs. My goodness, it was probably even 10 years ago. So appropriate transition that you guys all made into incorporating that whole building enclosure. So kudos for that. I know it's probably taken some time to get people to stop saying RCI and instead start saying IIBEC.
There was a swear jar for a while where people were having to put money in. However, as I like to joke, I never had the problem of saying RCI because I never worked there. My paycheck always said IIBEC. So that's the good news, I guess. For me, for others, they filled the jar, so that's okay.
And tell us a little bit about your history then. Where'd you come from?
So I had spent the previous 20 years working for the American Society of Civil Engineers. So I know there are folks involved in this industry who are engineers, and probably some of you are even maybe members of ASC. I ran their public policy operations for them. One of the things we did there that folks seem to know about is we did something called the Report Card for America's Infrastructure. So we graded the nation's infrastructure every 4 years using an A through F scale, and got a lot of media attention and did some good at the state and local level trying to find more money to improve our nation's public works infrastructure, and was able to use my expertise there and my experience working with engineers for 20 years to make the transition and move actually out of Washington, D.C. after 30 years down to Raleigh, North Carolina, and take over the helm at IIBEC.
Well, it sounds like that was quite an endeavor to be able to spend all that time getting that report card going. We're very excited to have you be a part and leading this charge here for the IIBEC. The move somewhat recent for you?
Well, you know, Marcy, and you know this, you're leading me on. So
I am.
You know, the move is seemingly ongoing. The move will finally be finished this weekend. I moved ahead of my family because my son was finishing high school, although that didn't go as we were all planning it to go this year, but nothing has gone the way we've planned it to go in 2020. So everyone is now, we're all moving that way and sending 2 kids to college this week and reuniting with my wife down in Raleigh. So that is good, and looking forward to actually becoming more settled down there.
So the boxes behind you, not props, not props.
They're right, they are not props. The empty bookshelf is because that's moving out of the house quickly.
That's great. That's great. So I know there's a lot of different things that we can talk about when it is regarding the IIBEC. So let's talk about their objectives, code of ethics.
Well, and I think, you know, one of the things that I think defines what IIBEC does is our code of ethics. Every year, and I know folks on that are watching this are members of IIBEC. Every year we have folks sign the code of ethics when they rejoin or re-up their membership, and it's really just a reminder that at the core of what we do as consultants in this industry is focus on the independent design services and consultation services that we provide to building owners and other folks in the building enclosure world. And that notion of really it's that independence, and it's really being able to, as engineers and architects and other design professionals, have that independence of solving the problem. It's one of the things I was very pleased about when I was interviewing for the position at IIBEC, and as I've grown to know the members and sort of their interest in that independent consultant, if you will, is this idea of the arm's length in this process, and really just allowing that building enclosure consultant to solve the problem for the building, and be able to go to the owner and provide them that unique design approach to solve whatever problem they may have, whether it's leaking or other sorts of all the issues that your company and other companies' products help solve.
Yeah, for all aspects of that, right? New construction, restoration, and throughout the whole process.
All of it, yep.
Let's see here. And through that, I'm sure there's some areas of interest here as you're showing the knowledge, education, the whole idea of advocacy and networking, huge parts of industry, any industry association. Tell us a little bit of how IIBEC is doing just that.
Well, and I think, and there's a couple more slides about education in a minute, but I think one of the keys for us really is, and really why IIBEC got started in 1983, was this idea that there was this growing body of knowledge, if you will, in roof consulting then, but really now in building enclosure consulting, that allows us, if you will, or that forces folks to have to know more. And as buildings get more complex, and their systems get more complex, as an industry association, we were coming together and helping people learn more about that interaction and trying to learn more about how, in fact, buildings operate and buildings need to be maintained. And one of the things is, as you said, as any association does, is we offer education. And so we offer a variety of types of education, although I will say that variety is maybe a little bit different today than it was a year ago. Primarily, obviously, at this point, we're doing virtual education, but it's that notion that it's in-depth education on specific subject matter relating to walls, roofs, waterproofing, and focused on providing cutting-edge information. When we do our convention, which is in March of every year, or when we do our Building Enclosure Symposium, all of those presentations, if you will, are vetted. So they go through a process where folks submit their proposal, and then there's a group of folks that review it, and then they either get accepted or not get accepted. We do turn people down, and so it is a vetted presentation, we like to say. And then we also have our publication interface, which allows folks to share the research they're doing and solve unique problem solving or solutions that they found to problems in a print format. And again, that has carried on nicely during the pandemic, because that was always going to be mailed to folks. And so I think that this pandemic has changed the way we've done some things, and we can certainly talk about that. And then advocacy and networking. I mean, any association, networking is a tremendous and important part of it. And the ability for our members to get together and engage with their peers to solve problems, certainly when it comes to our annual convention and our other big event, the Building Enclosure Symposium, being able to get together with manufacturing representatives, sharing, war stories and solutions to problems that they've seen out in the field is terribly important. And even especially as we're growing this industry, if you will, the ability for us to attract younger people and new professionals, if you will, is improved significantly by some of the networking opportunities we have. And then, advocacy, that's my, my old home, if you will, in the world of advocacy. IIBEC is a little bit new to the world of advocacy, and really what we've been focused on and what we will continue to focus on is how consultant services are procured, if you will, when government procurement is involved. So if you're working on public works projects, schools or public buildings, courthouses, and things like that, how that procurement is actually utilized. We focused a little bit, and this gets into a little nerdy engineering, so I apologize, or architecture stuff, qualifications-based selection, which is the way most design services are selected in public works projects, which is a focus for the design professional on their expertise previously on other like projects. So, and we've been working both at the federal level and at the state level, and have started, albeit quietly and slowly, doing some advocacy work up in Canada. We didn't talk about it, and we will in a second, but about 20% of IIBEC's members are in Canada, and so it does bring us a bit of that international flavor to our membership. and we're trying to reach out and serve that public as well, our members up there, by engaging in public policy there.
That's a lot of great information, and no worries about getting nerdy with me. I am the director of nerdiness. I mean, building science. So love it, love it. I can speak first-handedly on just the ability to engage at these events. I was just at the Building Enclosure Symposium in Kentucky. Last March, and there was such a great engagement. And the other thing I really enjoyed was the presentations, as you said, are vetted ahead of time, and the information is shared. So as the presenter's presenting, you actually have all the information that comes on the flash drive about that presentation. So you can actually watch the presentation, seal a paper that's associated with it, and take notes and engage. And it was great, a great way to engage for sure. Speaking of education, here's some more information that you provided us about online and in-person education.
So I think this is one of the things where we've really been, I hate to say it, pivoting. That seems to be the word of the moment in the last 6 to 7 months. But we've really been able, normally, as many organizations, we really focused on in-person education. People like to get together to have these conversations, right? And that personal interaction is terribly important. Well, most of us are sitting at home, or if we're lucky, a little bit in the office every once in a while now. There isn't that opportunity at this point to have those in-person meetings. So we've really tried to transition and take a number of our more popular courses and bring them online and make them available to folks in a similar format to what we're doing today. But over sort of a 6 or 8 week session, 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week, to where folks normally they would have gone and gotten that education over 2 days in a certain location, and now we're just offering it online. And we've actually found a great deal of success in that. Most of us are stuck not being able to travel, so the audience is there for that on-demand education, or that live education that's virtual, and so we found that. But also in doing that, we're actually updating some of these courses, and we're actually taping them so that even if you missed one, you're able to go back now and purchase them online for us, which is a nice thing for us, and we hope, knock on wood, as everyone is, that we'll get back to doing that in-person education as soon as we're legally allowed to in many jurisdictions at this point. There is nothing, more, I think, important or useful. And for example, you talk about our March meeting, Marcy. There's 1,700 people that come together for our annual convention. It was supposed to be in Houston in March. We were about a week out when we said we can't go now because no one can go. And so we were able to pivot. We did offer it virtually. You guys actually participated with us in that as a company. And it was a new experience for everybody. And we learned a lot, and we're ready to do it again if we have to. But we were able to provide at least the educational opportunity and what I would call a modified trade show, which, it was a unique way to do it, and it was a way that we're all learning how to do some new education and interacting and that networking virtually, which is something we're all, I think, learning how to do.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're all getting better at it too, right? Because we need to. I think the best part I liked about participating in that was the fact that if I was going to attend in person, I wanted to attend too many of the presentations, and I couldn't be in 2 places at once. So I love the fact that the way you handled it this way, the advantage was I could attend them all, right? Because they're either handled at different times or recorded. So it was nice. You had a great lineup of speakers.
It was a great selling point as a way to remind people that, normally I think we had 23 sessions that we were offering, and normally you could only get to, 8 or 9 of those sessions just because that's the way it worked. And this way, we left the access open for another 40 days after the meeting, so you could go in afterwards and catch up on the ones you didn't see, and you didn't have to sit at your computer for 8 hours either. Right. I think that gets a little bit old. I think we all know that. So we found it very useful, and it was interesting. I would log into the meeting platform, and you could see at any given time how many people were in there, and even up to the very last days that it was open, which was the end of July, there were 20, 30, 40 people still logged in, still watching that education. So that gave us, we were really thrilled about that, and we were pleased that we were able to provide that to the building enclosure community. At that point, we were one of the first in our area in this sort of construction, roofing, building enclosure area to be able to offer a virtual meeting of that size. And it wasn't without a little bit of, white knuckle ride on some of it, and a little bit of anxiety on our part, but we feel it came off really well. And I don't want to do those every year. I'd like to see people in person, but we're ready to do them again if we need to.
Yeah, it's nice to have that capability just in case you need it. I think pivoting and adapting are two common words we're all using at all times these days. Lots of information, obviously, in the IIBEC interface, the technical journal. How often do these come out?
So we have 11 issues every year, so it's basically monthly, but 1 month it does not come out. And what I would say here, a couple of opportunities here. Number one, obviously it's a great technical resource. So there's a lot of good information in there for folks to learn about different themes in the building enclosure industry. It's also an opportunity for folks, if they're inclined, to submit content. So if you wanted to write about a problem that you were solving or an issue that you see out in the industry, there is that opportunity, and our team plots out a year's worth of issues in terms of thematic issues, so that there's a way to see a little bit further into the future about what we're going to be writing about, what we're going to be covering. So it is a way for folks also to, share their knowledge. So we like to publish our members' articles. So if folks folks watching today are interested, please reach out and we can work with you on that.
So you mail those to the members, and then it's also available online, right? If you wanted
Correct.
to.
We mail them to the members, and then it is available online, which is nice. And those issues are available always. So which is very good.
Yeah, that is nice. I'm still old school. I like getting the magazine. I like ripping stuff out,
I would agree. I still get magazines, and I still read Interface when it comes when we get them printed. But there are folks that do like digital, so we want to make sure we're sharing our digital version with people.
Well, and it's great too, because if there was an article that you remembered from years ago, as you said, they're online and they will stay online, so then you can still refer to it and pull that information up. So it's always there and ready to go. How about all these publications?
So this is our suite of publications that we have right now. The most recent publication that we came out with is our Manual of Practice, and this is the 3rd edition of the IIBEC Manual of Practice. I believe the original one was released in the early 2000s, and then it was updated in 2010, and then this is the 3rd edition, so it's gotten another refresh and an update. And I would say it's sort of it is the Bible, if you will, of our industry in terms of providing what folks need to know if they're going to be working in the building enclosure space. So it is a very nice publication. We've been able to do it this year in a couple of different ways. It's digital, so it's one of those ones that can rest on your computer, and if you're at a job site and you want to look something up, you don't have to have that problem of like, it's sitting on my desk. Or if Marcy, if you're like you or I and you want it printed, we are offering a print-on-demand version. So if you want to have that book on your desk, that's also possible. And then the other book and the other items there, the wind uplift pressure on low slope roofs. I don't think I need to go into a lot of detail as why that's important. There's some information in there. I even believe on my old organization, ASCE, they have that little standard called ASCE 7. And then there's another monograph that was published in conjunction with our foundation on roof drainage and making sure that roofs drain properly, because as we know, if they don't, that is a structural problem. And then we were able to, as part of the manual of practice, there is a glossary of terms in the back of it, but a lot of people just want the glossary of terms. So we've been able to peel out of that and offer that as a standalone publication for folks just to be able to have that dictionary of roofing and building enclosure related terms.
There's definitely specific terms we use in this industry. My kids through the years, just hearing me talk, they're like, "Oh God, mom's at it again." And even acronyms, right? The acronyms that we use.
Absolutely, and I've had to learn some of those terms, so I'm with you. I'm
Soup.
new to some of them. I look them up sometimes, so it's okay.
Yeah. And the strategic plan.
So, like every organization, every association, we do get together every once in a while and talk about where we want to go as an organization. And one of the things we did as an organization, especially as we changed our name, was take another close look at what we were doing with our strategic plan. And I would only highlight, I don't think anything that's listed there, and there's a much longer version to this, and there's one that's just one page that's got a little bit more words. I would highlight a couple things. One is that we've elevated to one of these key 7 areas, our emerging professionals. And that is, if we're not replacing folks who are more experienced in the industry, then in the profession, then we're going to have a problem as an organization and as a profession. So we've been spending a lot of time as IIBEC trying to ensure that IIBEC is a place that is welcoming and accommodating to emerging professionals, to folks who are just out of school or who are changing professions and wanting to get involved in building enclosures. So we've spent a little bit more time on that. And then regarding ethics is the other thing that we sort of elevated. And I talked about that at the beginning. But this idea of the sort of ethical, independent, and unbiased practice is a key value of the organization. And while we have a code of ethics, while every member, as I said, signs it every year as part of their membership renewal, we wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about that with our members. And so we've done a couple of things, and we're going to continue to do more. One is in Interface, we do a quarterly publication or a quarterly column now on an ethical topic. So just reminding folks, one of the best ways I think to learn to engage on ethics and to educate on ethics is to talk about case studies and how folks could do things better or differently. And so that column does that. And we're also going to be putting together some education on ethics, just as a way to continue the conversation about what's the best way to do ethical consulting work, if you will. So that is some of the focus on that, and we're excited about that as we move forward. And then the other ones I think obviously make sense: registrations and certifications and transferring knowledge. We've talked about that, advocacy, and really just a focus on what's the value of IIBEC. And I think one of the keys for any organization is just reminding and remembering from the organization perspective that we need to bring value to our members and be sure that the things that we're doing are the things that they actually need to be better professionals. And we focus on that quite a bit at IIBEC, and we'll continue to do that. And really, we want to hear from our members as to the things that we can do better, the things that we should do more of, and maybe even, frankly, some of the things we should do less of.
Yeah, the feedback is key, right? It sounds like you guys are really having a great focus in terms of value, that the education perspective, looking at case studies, and that focus on ethics and lessons learned obviously is a key part of that. So you have a membership breakdown here, which is interesting. It's great to see the diversity across the membership.
We do, and we've been growing for quite some time, which is nice. And even my fingers are crossed for this year, which is a very unique year. That we will at least. I'm gonna hope that we're gonna grow. How's that? And as you can see, we certainly have some folks that are Tremco employees who are members, and we appreciate that. We wanted to note that and highlight that. But we do have folks across a variety of pieces of the profession. We've got some industry folks, obviously. We've got consultants and students, facility managers, some folks involved in government even. So it's a good mix, and we are thrilled with our members.
That's great. I know we here at Tremco, as you can see, there's many people that are involved. I'm just really starting to get more involved, and had an opportunity to present at the Mid-South chapter meeting, which was a great opportunity. And for those Tremco people that are watching, there's local IIBEC chapters across North America, so we can definitely get involved on the local level as well. So that's a call to action for all of us at Tremco. And then for obviously anyone watching that isn't a member, you can see how the opportunities where you can participate, get educated, and of course network throughout the organization.
So next slide, Marcy. Are you gonna ask me a question, or you just want me to talk?
Go ahead and talk.
So one of the things that IIBEC does that I think is a little bit unique from other organizations is we have a registration program, and this is some people would call these certifications. We've called them registrations. We have a process whereby you demonstrate your expertise in a given area, and then as part of an application process, and then you can take an exam and you can put those variety of consultant credentials after your name. The largest ones we have, as you can see, is a registered roof observer and a registered roof consultant. Those are the older ones that we have, and basically it is really for folks to demonstrate their expertise in this given area. I think it's a little bit unique. There are, I came from an organization where most of the people that were members were PEs, but that doesn't mean, and PEs are important, and that's, you get licensed by the state for that and you pass a test, but it doesn't necessarily focus what your expertise is within the discipline of engineering. You could be a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, etc., and you're a PE. With our credentials, what you're doing is you're demonstrating that expertise in that given area. So if you're a registered roof observer, it's because you're qualified to watch folks putting the roofing materials down and being able to say if they're doing it the right way or the wrong way, and work with owners to ensure that the jobs get done correctly. And so we feel those programs are terribly important. We go through a pretty rigorous process to develop the examinations, and they are reviewed every couple of years to make sure if things change in the industry, we need to change the exams. And as you can see, we're just clicked over 2,000 registrations. We're pretty excited about that, and that continues to grow. And we've actually seen, even in the economy that we're in right now, a little bit of an uptick, because I think people are trying to demonstrate more value, if you will, more professional value for themselves as consultants by demonstrating their knowledge base. So we're pleased with that. Most testing centers are back open again, which is good, so folks can take the exams and get their registrations.
Perfect. Yeah, this was a great lead-in. So that whole reach out of, if there's knowledge that you are needing, and anyone that's watching right now, there's great opportunities here in order to get this type of registration, certification, whatever we want to call it. Interesting perspective here, just being able to see the waterproofing, exterior wall, the roof observer, the building enclosure consultant. When people become registered, they take these exams, they pass. Are they listed on your website then?
They are listed on the website, and you can be searched, if you will, and we do get calls on I would say a weekly basis, or maybe even more frequently than that, from, if you will, owners or consumers searching for the proper consultant to help solve their problem with their building enclosure. And so that's one of the things that we offer, if you will, to give access to folks to allow them to find the proper person to solve their problem.
And then there's certain accreditation you need to receive to continue to retain that. Right.
Correct. So on a yearly basis, there's a certain amount of continuing education that you need. Obviously, you can get that by going to IIBEC events, but you can go to other events as well to get that, and that's on a yearly basis.
Yeah. Perfect.
So much like a PE or an RA who has to do continuing education, it's a very similar process.
Yep. And here is some more of that statistics about the continuing education provider.
Right. So this is a new program we started, Marcy, and I think it's probably important, and there are lots of education providers out there. Tremco actually provides education, and what we've been able to do is folks like to be able to say that their education program qualifies as an IBEC CEH, right? So and what this program does is it allows it to be pre-approved, and we go through a little bit of a process. We started this program at the beginning of this year in January, and we've seen significant interest in it from all over the industry, both both organizations, associations, if you will, that offer the type of education that would qualify for IBEC CEHs, to other manufacturers who offer education to qualify for IBEC CEHs. So it's one of those things where we feel it's helping the marketplace, because it's really, when you see that education, that IBEC has taken a little bit of a look at it, and that it's not going to be, if you will, sales oriented or product specific, that it's truly technical in nature and really focused on trying to solve problems on a job site or on a project.
Yeah, it's a great way to be able to provide that education. Those lessons learned, those case studies, right? I know we have a few that we've submitted and gotten approved, and obviously dedicated to that, to even have even more courses added to that listing. Mentioned this before briefly about the different regions, the different opportunities to engage. So here's a great map that shows that.
Absolutely. So I would just, those are where we have chapters. We also have branches in a few other places. So for example, we now have a branch in Mexico City. That happened during the pandemic. So we've got a small group of members who started a branch, which is smaller than a chapter. So, and we're continuing to grow. We also have a new branch that's starting in Ottawa as well. So I think they'll be starting at the beginning of next year. So we are expanding, we are growing, probably not as much this year as we would in other years, but we are growing.
And of course, the Certified Building Enclosure Commissioning Provider.
So yeah, this is brand new, and it's so brand new that it's not quite out yet. So you saw the slide, and we talked about registrations. There is a void, if you will, in the industry for folks who do building commissioning. There is no, if you will, certification for that at this point. There are some certificates you can get. And IBEC took about the process of creating an actual certification. It's going to be ISO accredited, which is a little different than what our registration process is. And our registration processes follow the ISO accreditation, but we've actually never gotten them ISO accredited. This is actually going to be ISO accredited. It will be a certification. It will be similar, if you will, to what our registration program is, in that you will apply for it, which means you list some of your background, your skills, your knowledge, your education. Once you're accepted for application, then you go about the process of taking an exam. We are in the final, knock on wood, stages of finalizing that exam, and that we are hopeful that I'm gonna say late fall now. It was all going to be done, and then this thing happened. I don't know if you're aware. There's this pandemic, and some of the stuff we've had to figure out is, normally when you build these questions or create the questions, it's actually done as part of a workshop. You have people in a room.
Right.
Well, there's no rooms anymore, so you have to figure out a way to do that in a secure fashion to keep the integrity of the exam. And so we're finishing up the exam shortly, and I hope that by the end of the year, or the first quarter of 2021, we're going to be offering this exam, and people can get that new certification.
That's great. I know it is a hot topic for many reasons, right? It's a need that we have, so it's great work that's coming into fruition. The virtual events, I know you mentioned that earlier. We're all getting better at being able to maneuver through these virtual events. So hopefully they're short-lived for us, or else we'll use them where we need to. Exactly,
and I just wanted to show everyone that you guys were there, and that that's what it looks like. And my fingers are crossed, but we may see this again. I know that we're going to see it for our Canadian Building Enclosure Symposium, which is in September. So those of you who are interested in that program, you can go to the website and see what the program is. The price is right, we think, and there are some folks who are exhibiting there as well. We'd love to have Tremco exhibit if they're interested. I can put that plug in today. But there are going to be some good education sessions, and they're not necessarily Canadian specific, but just good education.
We're proud to say that we've submitted for many of the programs in the past, and we submitted with a couple of our consultant partners. And so a few of us got our content accepted, so we're excited to be able to be a part of that event. And here's that information of those upcoming events.
Absolutely.
So we've got September, as you mentioned, the virtual Canadian Building Enclosure Symposium, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, the Houston November meeting.
And then our annual convention next spring will be in Phoenix in March.
2021.
Which is a good time to be in Phoenix.
Yes, exactly. Let's get out of this 2020 already. Well, you know what, Brian, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very excited to be able to have you be a part of this program. I can speak for Tremco to know that we are very proud to be a part of this organization, IIBEC, and we're looking forward to continuing to work closely and collaboratively with you and all of the members that make up IIBEC.
Well, thanks for having me today, and we appreciate your involvement in IIBEC and the things you are helping us do, and the engagement that we have with you on a number of different levels.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Safe travels. Good luck on your move.
Thanks.
Your final move there, and look forward to talking to you when you're all settled back into your new home. Great. Have a great weekend. Everybody, thanks once again for joining us for Tremco Live this week's broadcast. That will conclude our Industry Association Month. As we move into September, we're going to welcome Paul Hoogenboom back as my co-host, and we are going to start to venture into glazing again. We touched on some glazing applications, some glazing projects in the past. We're going to take the entire month of September to look at case studies. When we look at these case studies, we're going to bring in the consultants, the contractors, and of course, our sales reps that were engaged in that process. So that whole idea of that Trinity effect that SWRI talked about last week, the consultants that we're talking about, and the organization we talked about today with Brian. So we're excited about that collaboration. We want to talk to you about those case studies, and we look forward to engaging with you all in the month of September and on. So everybody, once again, thanks for your time and attention today. Have a great weekend.